Welcome to Reform Thinking. It is good to have you with us. Today, we are going to do something that might seem a little counterintuitive at first. Usually when you think about a deep dive, you imagine taking on a massive topic. You know, the entire history of the Reformation or the problem of evil or maybe the whole book of Romans. We like those big, sweeping landscapes.
We do. We love the big picture.
But today, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to take a microscope to a really, really tiny fragment of text.
We're zooming way in.
Way in. We're looking at just one verse, and really it's just 3 specific words inside that one verse. We're looking at Titus chapter 1, verse 8.
It is such a small piece of real estate in the Bible, but the density of it is just incredible. I mean, you could build a whole ecclesiology, a whole doctrine of the church right on this one verse.
And that's the claim we're sort of testing today. The source material you brought to the table, it includes a couple of pretty heavy-hitting theological articles, some commentaries on the Greek text. And the argument they all seem to make is that we've been reading the qualifications for elders all wrong. We tend to read the pastoral epistles, 1 Timothy, Titus, almost like a hiring checklist.
Oh, absolutely. It becomes an HR rubric. Is he married? Check. Are his kids generally well-behaved? Check. Does he drink too much? No. Okay, he's hired. Let's put him on the board.
Exactly. But the sources are arguing that this is such a surface-level reading. We aren't just looking for a decent guy. We are looking at what they call the moral architecture of a steward of God.
That phrase is so good.
That phrase really stuck with me, moral architecture.
It's a strong phrase because architecture implies design.
Right.
It implies weight-bearing structures. It implies that if you pull one piece out, the whole building might just come down.
Yeah.
Paul isn't just throwing random adjectives at Titus. He's giving him a blueprint for a very specific kind of man who is necessary to survive a very specific kind of crisis.
And before we even get to the man, we have to understand the crisis. We have to get the setting. Where are we? We're on the island of Crete. Now, when I hear Crete, I think, Mediterranean, blue water, maybe some feta cheese, olive groves, ancient ruins. It sounds like a pretty great place to take a vacation.
It might be a nice place to visit now, but back in the 1st century, the reputation of Crete was, well, let's just say it wasn't the kind of place you'd want to raise your kids.
The sources mentioned something fascinating, that the culture was so notorious that the Greeks actually turned the name of the island into a verb.
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
The verb was kritizo, to Cretanize.
And I'm guessing that didn't mean to go to the beach.
No, not at all. To Cretanize meant to lie. It meant to play the hypocrite, to deceive for gain.
Wow.
It was a cultural idiom. If you were ripping someone off, you were Cretanizing them. Can you imagine living in a society where your national identity is literally synonymous with dishonesty? That was just the air they breathed.
That is wild. It's like if the name of your city, say Chicago, became the dictionary definition for scam or something.
Precisely. And Paul is completely aware of this. In Titus 1.12, he actually quotes one of their own poets, a guy named Epimenides. And he says, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons.
Evil beasts, that's not a polite description.
It's visceral, isn't it? I mean, think about what a beast does. A beast operates on pure instinct. It's driven by appetite, hunger, lust, rage. A beast doesn't use reason, it just uses force.
Right.
And lazy gluttons implies they want to consume without producing anything. They want the food, but they don't want to work the field. So Paul is painting this picture of a culture that is just defined by raw appetite, deception, and chaos.
And here's the kicker. Paul leaves Titus, his young protege, right in the middle of this mess. He drops him off on this island of liars and beasts, and he gives him a mission. Put what remained into order.
Order versus chaos.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental conflict of the whole letter.
Now, let's just play a game here. If I'm a modern business consultant or maybe a church growth strategist and I look at this situation, I've got some ideas.
I bet you do.
You have a fledgling organization in a hostile, chaotic market. The brand reputation of the locals is terrible. So my advice would be, okay, you need a strategy, you need a program, you need a PR campaign to show everyone how you're different. You need a 5-year plan.
That is exactly how we think today. We think in terms of systems and techniques. If there's a problem, we build a program to go fix it.
But that is not what Paul does. Not at all. He doesn't give Titus a manual on how to rebrand the Cretan church.
No. Paul's solution to chaos isn't a program, it's a person. Or rather, a specific type of person.
Yeah.
He tells Titus to appoint elders in every town. And the logic is just fascinating. He believes that the only way to stabilize a community of believers in a culture of deception is to install leaders whose internal character is ordered, truthful, and disciplined.
And this is really the thesis of our whole deep dive today. Order is established through qualified men whose lives embody the message. Disorder is solved by character, not by technique.
That is it. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. You can have the best bylaws in the world, the best mission statement, the best music, the best building, but if the men leading it are Cretans, if they're liars or beasts on the inside, the church will collapse.
But if they have this moral architecture,
If they have the architecture, the church can withstand the culture. It can be an outpost of order in a world of chaos.
so let's get into it. Let's look at the blueprints. We are focusing on verse 8, but the sources point out that you can't really understand verse 8 without just glancing at verse 7 first. There's a logical flow here.
Right. Paul works in negatives before he gets to the positives. It's brilliant structure. In verse 7, he lists what the overseer must not be.
The disqualified.
The disqualifiers. He must not be arrogant, quick-tempered, a drunkard, violent, or greedy for gain.
It's like he's clearing the construction site. You know, you've got to bulldoze all the junk and rubble before you can pour the foundation.
That's a great image. And just look at the junk he's clearing out. Arrogance, violence, greed. These are the exact traits of the evil beasts. A self-willed, arrogant man treats the church like it's his personal kingdom. A greedy man treats the church like it's a business opportunity. Paul just says, stop. If a man has these traits, he is toxic. He is out. He cannot be a steward.
Because a steward, by definition, manages someone else's house. If you're arrogant, you think it's your house.
Correct. And the church belongs to God. The elder is just the manager. So verse 7 puts up all the guardrails. Then in verse 8, we get this pivot. It starts with the word bud. Now we're moving to what he must be.
And this brings us to the 3 key terms for today. The source material highlights 3 specific Greek words in verse 8 that really form the spine of this moral architecture. We're going to take these apart one by one.
Let's do it.
The first pillar, the first virtue. The Greek word is philagathon.
Philagathos.
It sounds a little bit like a marathon, but it's not. Break this word down for us. The articles make a huge deal about the linguistic roots here.
It's a compound word. It combines 2 Greek words. Philos, which means friend or having a deep affection for.
Like Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love.
Exactly. And agathos, which is the word for the good. So very literally, it means a lover of good, a friend of the good.
And here's a fun fact for all the word nerds listening, and I know you're out there. This word is a hapax legomenon.
Hapax legomenon, which is a fancy way of saying it appears only one time in the entire New Testament.
It's this one spot.
Just here, Paul reaches into his vocabulary and pulls out this very specific, unique term just for the elder.
So why? I mean, why use this word here and nowhere else?
Because he is drawing the sharpest possible contrast with the false teachers and the culture of Crete. Remember, the Cretans are evil beasts, and elsewhere Paul describes false teachers as philagtoi lovers of self,
Okay.
or philagoroi lovers of money, or philodoi lovers of pleasure.
I see the pattern. It's all about what you love, what your philos is directed toward.
Right. The false teachers have affections that are curved inward. They love what benefits them. They love their own reputation, their own wallet, their own comfort. Paul uses philagathon to say, no, the elder must be fundamentally different. His affections have to be turned outward toward what is intrinsically good.
The phrase used in one of the articles is an internal renovation of the affections. That hits hard. It implies that this isn't just about behavior. It's not just about doing your duty.
Duty is not enough. That's the point. You can do the right thing for the completely wrong reason.
Oh, sure.
You can give a bunch of money to the poor because you want people to see you and think you're generous. You can preach a powerful sermon because you want people to come up afterward and tell you how smart you are. That is exactly what the Pharisees did. They did good actions, but they were philatoi. They were livers of self.
So Paul is demanding a man who actually likes the good. He has a friendship with it. He enjoys it.
Yes, he derives pleasure from it. When he sees justice done, something inside him rejoices. When he sees truth proclaimed, he's happy. He isn't doing it through gritted teeth as some kind of burdensome task.
This connects directly to Reformed theology, doesn't it? I mean, specifically what we believe about the condition of the human heart before Christ.
It goes right to the heart of the doctrine of total depravity. We have to be really honest about this. The Reformed view, which we would argue is the biblical view, is that in our natural fallen state, we are hostile to God. We do not naturally love the good.
In fact, we kind of hate it.
We actually hate it because the good, with a capital G, shines a light on our sin. Jesus said men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil.
Okay, so if that's our natural state, our factory setting, then becoming a philagathon is not something we can just decide to do one day. I can't just wake up and say, you know what? Today, I will start loving the good.
You cannot. You can change your behavior, sure,
Yeah.
but you cannot change your appetite. Only God can change your appetite. So for a man to truly be a philagathon, it is absolute proof of a supernatural work. It's proof of regeneration.
He has to be born again.
He has to be.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit has to come in, take out that heart of stone, and put in a heart of flesh, a heart that actually beats for the things that God loves. So when we look for elders, we aren't just looking for moral competence. We're looking for signs of genuine spiritual life.
Let's bring this into the 21st century, because the source material draws a pretty uncomfortable parallel here. It talks about the counterfeits, specifically the CEO pastor and the idol of pragmatism.
This is a massive, massive issue in the modern church. We live in a business-driven culture. We value growth, numbers, efficiency, branding. So when churches go looking for leaders, what do they often look for? They look for lovers of efficiency or lovers of relevance.
We need a guy who can really draw a crowd, or we need someone who knows how to market our church.
Right. We need a guy who can balance the budget and manage the staff. And look, those are helpful skills, no doubt. But if we prioritize those things over the love of good, we are in deep trouble.
Yeah.
We tacitly assume that if the results are good, meaning, the parking lot is full, then the man himself must be good.
If it works, God must be in it. That's the mantra.
That is the pragmatist's creed. But the philagathon asks a completely different question. He doesn't ask, does it work? He asks, is it faithful?
Okay, let's ground this. Give me a practical scenario where what works is in direct conflict with what is good.
Okay, think about church discipline, or even just preaching the hard texts of the Bible. From a purely pragmatic marketing standpoint, telling people that they are sinners is a terrible strategy.
Bad for business.
It's terrible for business. It makes your customers feel bad. It might drive them down the street to the church that has a better coffee shop and a motivational speaker who tells them how great they are.
So the lover of success softens the message, waters it down.
He has to. He softens it because he loves the result, the big crowd, more than he loves the truth. But the lover of good, the philagathon, he preaches the whole counsel of God. He confronts sin. He handles messy, painful discipline issues. And he does it because it is good. It's what God commands, even if the numbers take a hit for a few months.
That is a tough test, a really tough test.
It is the ultimate test. When what works conflicts with what is faithful, the philagathon chooses faithfulness every single time. Because his definition of good isn't subjective. It's not cultural. It's not what feels good. It is objectively rooted in God's own character. God is the good. So the elder simply loves what God loves.
So that's the first pillar, philagathon, the internal renovation of the heart. Now, Paul shifts our gaze. We move from the internal to the external. The second virtue is dikaion, which is usually translated as upright or just.
Righteous or just. Both are good translations.
Now, we need to pause here for a second, because justice is a huge buzzword right now. When people hear the word justice, they immediately think of social justice, political activism, courtrooms, equity.
All sorts of modern baggage comes with that word.
Right. So is Paul getting political here? Is he talking about social reform in Crete?
That is a crucial distinction to make. And the source material is very clear that we need to strip away the modern sociological definitions that we've attached to that word. When Paul says dikaion, he is not talking about systemic redistribution. He's not engaging with critical theory or modern equity concepts. He is talking about biblical justice.
Okay, so define that for us. What is biblical justice in this specific context?
It's rooted in one core concept, impartiality. The background here is Leviticus 19.14. It says, "You shall do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor."
I want to catch that nuance because it's so important. Not partial to the poor. We usually only hear don't favor the rich. We know that's bad, but the Bible says don't favor the poor either.
Exactly. It is blind justice. It's Lady Justice wearing a blindfold.
Yeah.
Biblical justice means you treat the wealthy donor who just paid for the new building and the struggling widow who has nothing by the exact same standard. You don't tip the scales because of someone's social status or their race or their influence in the community.
And for an elder, this is the horizontal virtue, right?
Yes, dear.
Philagathon was internal, dikaion is horizontal. It's how you deal with your fellow man.
Precisely. How does this man deal with other people? Is he straight? Does he walk a straight line in a crooked world?
The sources call him the unbribable man.
That is the title worth aspiring to. The unbribable man.
But practically speaking, are elders really getting bribed? I mean, are people showing up to elder meetings with briefcases full of cash? I doubt it.
No, probably not cash. But the bribe comes in other, more subtle forms. Think about the role of an elder. They are adjudicators. They have to make hard decisions that affect people's lives. They settle disputes between members. They decide who gets money from the benevolence fund. They have to rule on discipline cases.
The temptation to be partial in those situations has to be huge.
It's enormous. The bribe isn't money. The bribe is comfort or approval. Let's say a very influential family in the church has a son who is living in open, unrepentant sin. The elder knows he needs to address it.
Yeah.
But he thinks, if I confront this, that family might leave the church. They might take their rather large tithe with them. They might start a rumor campaign against me. My life is going to get very, very hard.
So the bribe is just stay quiet and you can keep your peace.
Exactly. You accept the bribe of a comfortable life in exchange for compromising the truth. The deacon man cannot be bought with that currency. He fears God more than he fears the messy consequences of doing the right thing. He looks at the rich man and the poor man and applies the word of God equally to both.
Straight really is the best word for it. In a crooked generation, and we have to remember he is in Crete, the land of professional liars. Is this man straight?
That is the fundamental question. If he says he will be at your house at 3.0, is he there at 3.0? If he borrows money, does he pay it back on time? If he makes a promise, does he keep it, even if it hurts him later? In a culture of Cretanizing, where everyone is cutting corners and spinning the truth, the upright man is a jarring, confusing anomaly.
I want to circle back to the theology of this for a second. Because when we talk about being righteous or upright, especially in a Reformed context, some alarm bells might go off for some of our listeners.
Sure.
We are Protestants. We believe in solidified justification by faith alone. We aren't saved by being upright. We are saved by Christ's perfect uprightness being credited to our account.
Right. Absolutely.
So is Paul sliding into a kind of works righteousness here? Is he saying you earn your standing before God by being a good boy?
It's a vital question to ask. And the answer is absolutely not. We have to be crystal clear and distinguish between justification and sanctification. The Westminster Confession of Faith makes this distinction beautifully clear. We are justified, that is, declared right with God, solely on the merit of Christ. We contribute nothing to that. Our best works are filthy rags in that courtroom.
So that's our legal standing.
That is our legal standing. But here, Paul is talking about sanctification. He's talking about the fruit of that salvation. This is what the Reformers call the third use of the law.
Break that down for us, the third use.
Okay, so the first use of the law is a mirror. It shows us our sin and our need for Christ. It drives us to the cross. The second use is civil restraint. It keeps society from descending into total chaos. But the third use is the law as a guide for the believer's life. It shows us how to please the God who so graciously saved us.
So this means we reject antinomianism.
We reject it entirely. Antinomianism is that idea that because we are saved by grace, the law doesn't matter anymore. I can live however I want, grace will just cover it. Paul says no. 1,000 times no. If you have been justified by grace, you will begin to live a life that is dikaion. You cannot claim to have the righteousness of Christ imputed to you and then go on living a life of financial shadiness and broken promises. It just doesn't compute.
It connects back to the mission in Crete, doesn't it? The elder is supposed to be the visual aid for the gospel. If your visual aid is crooked, people are going to assume the gospel is crooked.
That is the living anomaly. Imagine the contrast. Everyone in town is lying to get ahead. Everyone is cheating on their business deals. And then there's this elder. He tells the truth, even when it costs him dearly. He treats the slave and the master with the same exact respect. He's a puzzle to the world.
And that puzzle provokes a question. Why are you like this? What is wrong with you?
And the answer is, because I serve a king who is like this.
That is powerful. So we've built two pillars of this architecture. We have philagathon, the lover of good, which is internal. We have dikaion, the upright man, which is horizontal. Now we move to the third virtue in this triad, hoshin.
Hoshin.
This is usually translated as holy.
Yes, holy or devout.
Now for the Greek students out there, there's another more common word for holy, isn't there? Hagios. That's the one we usually see. The saints are the hagioi. Why does Paul switch to harshin here? Is it just a synonym or is there a difference?
It's more than just a synonym, it's a very specific flavor of holiness.
Hmm.
Hagios usually refers to a position being set apart.
Mm-hmm.
Israel was hagios because God chose them.
Yeah.
The temple utensils were hagios because they were set apart for temple use. It's a status.
Okay, so it's about being set apart for something. What about hosin?
Hosin implies an intrinsic piety, a devoutness. It carries the sense of pleasing God not just in your official standing, but in your disposition and your personal conduct. It is intensely personal.
The sources make a distinction that they draw from classical Greek. They say dikaion is about being right by human law, walking straight with your fellow men. But hosin is about being right by divine law.
That's the vertical dimension. Dikaion is man to man. Hosin is man to God. This is the secret life. This measures the man, coram Deo, before the face of God.
This is the scary one.
It's the scariest one.
Yeah.
It really is. Because you can fool people with dikaion. You can. You can pay your bills on time. You can be polite. You can follow all the civics of your community. You can be a good citizen. And people will look at you and say, he's a very upright man.
But they can't see the heart. They can't see what happens when the doors are closed.
Hosin asks, what is happening when no one is looking? What is your prayer life actually like? Do you actually reverence God? Do you tremble at his word? Or do you just work for him like he's a boss?
The Puritans used to warn about this constantly. They talked about the man who is publicly respectable but privately polluted.
It's the whitewashed tomb warning that Jesus gave. The outside looks clean and freshly painted, but the inside is full of dead men's bones and decay. And the source material brings this right into the 21st century. It talks about secret sins, and specifically it mentions pornography and internet immorality.
We have to go there because this is the elephant in the room for so many modern men. We live in an age where secret sin is easier to access than at any other point in human history.
It is. The whole world is in your pocket. A man might say, look, I haven't committed physical adultery. I haven't touched another woman. I haven't broken the law. So he thinks he's dikaion. He hasn't broken the civil contract of his marriage in a public way.
But in the dark, on his phone.
If he is consuming filth on a screen in the dark, he is not hosin. He is not holy. He is polluted in the sight of God. He's feeding his mind and his soul on the exploitation and degradation of others.
And Paul is saying that man, no matter how respectable he looks on Sunday, cannot be an elder.
He cannot. Not because he's unforgivable. Grace is available for every sin, thank God. But he is unqualified. The elder is a steward of God's house. He handles the holy things of God. The word, the sacraments, the care of souls. How can you bring the holy things of God to the people if your own hands are stained with secret, unrepentant sin?
It's a matter of integrity. You simply can't lead people to a place you aren't going yourself.
Precisely. If you aren't actively pursuing holiness in the secret place, you have no business trying to help others pursue it in the public space.
Now, we need to balance this because the sources also offer a really important clarification. When we talk about holiness and elders, some people might hear priest. They might think we're trying to set up a special class of super spiritual intermediaries between us and God.
Right, and we need to avoid that error of sacerdotalism. That's the Roman Catholic idea of a special priestly class that dispenses grace. We're not saying the elder is a mediator. There is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, period.
And we aren't talking about mysticism either, are we?
No. We are not looking for a guy who floats 3 inches off the ground when he prays, hears voices, and glows in the dark. That's not it. Harshin is ordinary, durable devotion.
I like that phrase. Ordinary, durable devotion. What does that actually look like in a man's life?
It looks like a man who actually prays. He talks to God. It looks like a man who reads his Bible not just to find sermon illustrations, but because his soul is genuinely hungry for it. It looks like a man who repents. When he sins, and he will sin, it breaks his heart because he offended a holy God he loves, not just because he got caught. He has a soft conscience toward God.
I really like how the sources tie these 3 virtues together. It isn't just a random list, it's an interlocking portrait. They protect each other.
They absolutely do. Think about it. If you have lover of good, philagathos, but you don't have upright, dikaion, what do you get? You get a sentimentalist.
Okay.
You love the idea of good. You get emotional during the worship songs, but you don't actually treat people fairly. You don't pay your employees on time. You're all feeling no ethics.
That's a disaster. What if you have upright, but you don't have holy?
And then you become a cold legalist, a Pharisee. You follow all the rules. You're rigid. You're exacting. But there is no warmth of devotion to God. You're a rule keeper, not a worshiper. You're a stoic, not a Christian.
And what if you have holy without the other two?
You become a monk,
Uh,
a hermit. You
mhm.
isolate. You focus on your own private spirituality, your own holiness, but you're completely useless to the community. You ignore the real-world needs of your neighbor because you're too busy being spiritual. Paul weaves them together. The heart that loves good, the life that walks straight with men, and the spirit that bows reverently before God. That's the architecture.
It is a remarkably high bar. I mean,
Yeah.
reading this, hearing this, who is sufficient for these things? If I'm a guy listening to this right now thinking, maybe I should be an elder someday, I'm probably feeling pretty small.
And you should. We all should feel small. If you read this list and think, nailed it, that's me, you are almost certainly not qualified, because the foundational mark of this man is humility. But this leads us to the most important section of our whole discussion, the Christological frame.
Right, because this isn't just a list of demands for us to meet in our own strength. The sources call it borrowed light.
That is such a beautiful phrase, borrowed light. The elder is not the sun, he's the moon. He's not the source of these virtues. He's just a reflection. And to understand the reflection, we have to look at the source, which is Christ, as the archetype.
Okay, walk us through that. How is Jesus the perfect fulfillment of Titus 1.8?
Well, let's start with philagathos. Jesus is the true lover of good. He loved the Father's will perfectly. He said, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me." He loved the good, even when the good meant the unimaginable suffering of the cross. And Hebrews says he did it not out of grim duty, but for the joy that was set before him.
And he is the true dikaion, the truly just one.
The only truly upright man who ever lived. He was tempted in every way, yet without sin. He was completely unbribable. Satan offered him all the kingdoms of the world in the wilderness. That's the ultimate bribe. And he just said no.
Right.
He didn't play favorites. He spoke hard truth to the rich Pharisees and offered tender grace to the outcast woman at the well. He was perfectly straight.
And the true hosios.
Acts 2.27 actually calls him God's Holy One, using that same root word, hosios. His devotion to the Father was constant and unbroken. So when we look for an elder, we are fundamentally looking for a man who, in his own imperfect way, reminds us of Jesus.
This brings in the doctrine of union with Christ. This is the engine that powers these virtues, because without this, it's just moralism. It's just trying harder.
Yes, this is so crucial.
Right.
We don't want a man who is just white-knuckling it every day. I will be good. I will be just. I will be holy. I crashes and burns eventually. That's just human willpower. We want a man who is united to Christ by faith. The sap of the vine is flowing into the branch, producing fruit that he couldn't produce on his own.
Grace trains him.
That's Titus 2.11:14. For the grace of God has appeared, training us to renounce ungodliness. The very same grace that saves is the grace that shapes. So the elder isn't a man who earned his office by his moral achievements. He is a man who has been conquered by grace. His life is being actively reshaped by the Redeemer.
This also changes the nature of his authority, doesn't it? The sources mention a distinction between ministerial and magisterial authority. This is a bit technical, but it seems really important for how elders actually function.
It's a classic Reformed distinction, and it's vital.
Right.
Magisterial authority belongs to a master, the magister. He makes the rules. He's the legislative branch.
Yeah.
In the church, that is Christ and Christ alone. He's the head of the church. He wrote the book.
Okay, so that's magisterial. What's ministerial authority?
Ministerial authority belongs to a minister or servant. He serves the rules that the master has already laid down. He's the judicial or executive branch, simply applying what the master wrote. He has no authority to make up new rules.
I've heard the analogy of the waiter and the chef.
That is the best analogy for this. Think about a high-end restaurant. The chef creates the menu. He designs the dishes. He combines the ingredients. He determines the entire flavor profile. That is Christ and his word. The elder is the waiter.
And the waiter doesn't cook the meal.
No. And he certainly doesn't decide what's on the menu. He doesn't look at the steak the chef prepared and say, you know what, I think this needs more sugar, and then throw a handful of sugar on it before taking it out to the table.
No, his job is to get the food from the kitchen to the table without spilling it or messing it up.
Exactly. He serves the word. He doesn't invent it. He delivers it faithfully.
This keeps the elder humble. He always remembers he ministers under the chief shepherd.
Precisely. Your job isn't to be innovative. Your job is to be obedient. You're just delivering the king's mail. You're not writing your own letters.
That's actually very freeing. It takes the pressure off to be some kind of creative genius, and it puts the pressure where it belongs on being faithful.
It's incredibly freeing.
So we've built the architecture, we see the Christological foundation, now let's try to land the plane with some very practical application. If I'm in a church, Maybe I'm on a pastor search committee, or maybe I'm just a member who's about to vote on a new elder. How do we actually find these guys? Because we can't see into their hearts.
The source material is very practical here. And the first piece of advice is look for patterns, not just moments.
Oh, that's good. Anyone can be holy for an hour on a Sunday morning.
Right. Anyone can seem upright when everything in their life is going well. But what is the pattern of this man's life over years? You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for a trajectory. Is the arrow of his life generally pointing up toward Christ?
What are the red flags then? If I'm looking at a candidate, what are the things that should make me pause and say, let's wait a minute?
Habitual self-justification. That's a massive one. When he's wrong, does he readily and humbly admit it? Or does he spin it? Does he blame shift? Well, I only yelled at you because you made me so mad. That is self-justification. If a man cannot simply say, I was wrong, please forgive me, he cannot be an elder because he doesn't fundamentally understand the gospel, which starts with, I am a sinner in need of grace.
What about financial opacity? Secrecy around money.
Huge red flag. If he's secretive about his money or if he's always looking for that shameful gain Paul mentions elsewhere, you need to stay away. Money is so often a proxy for the heart. If a man cannot be trusted with money, he absolutely cannot be trusted with souls.
And what about spiritual performance?
Yes. The guy who always has to be the most spiritual person in the room. The guy who prays the longest, loudest, most eloquent prayers, usually to be seen by others, that is often a mask that is covering up a profound lack of genuine devotion in private. True holiness is usually quiet, doesn't need an audience.
Paul gives a specific warning in 1 Timothy regarding this whole process. He says, do not be hasty in the laying on of hands.
The time factor. Time is the great revealer of character. And the sources quote a sentence that just chilled me to the bone. It says, office amplifies character flaws, it doesn't cure them.
Wow. Say that again. That needs to sink in for every church member.
Office amplifies character flaws, it doesn't cure them. We so often think, oh, he's a little immature, maybe a bit arrogant, but if we make him a leader, he'll rise to the occasion. The responsibility will sober him up.
But that's not what happens, is it?
No. It's like giving a faster car to a bad driver. It doesn't make him a better driver. It just makes the eventual crash much, much bigger. If a man is slightly arrogant now, give him authority and he will become a tyrant. If he's slightly greedy now, give him access to the church budget and he will become a thief. Do not ever think the office is a remedy. It's a magnifier.
That is why the installation process itself is so grave. It's not just, hey, Mob, you want to be on the board? Great, the first meeting is Tuesday.
No, it's a covenantal moment.
Okay.
It involves prayer, fasting, the laying on of hands. The congregation is saying, we recognize the character of Christ in you and we submit to your leadership as you submit to Christ. And man is saying, I will give an account to God for your souls. It is terrifyingly serious. Hebrews says they watch over souls as those who will have to give an account.
And once they're in that office, how do we protect them and protect the church? The sources mention that single-man rule is incredibly dangerous.
Plurality is essential. In the New Testament, you almost always see elders, plural, in every church. Paul told Titus to appoint elders in every town. Why? Because no one man has all the gifts. And more importantly, no one man is immune to temptation and pride.
Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Lord Acton was right. Shared wisdom protects the church from a dictator, and it also protects the man from burnout and from his own pride. He needs brothers who could look him in the eye and say, brother, you were wrong about this. He needs real accountability.
And we also need to protect them from false accusations, but be ready to handle real sin if it happens.
Yes, 1 Timothy 5.19 says, don't even entertain an accusation against an elder unless there are 2 or 3 witnesses. Leaders are targets. People get angry when you tell them the truth. So you need a shield. You can't let every disgruntled rumor destroy a leader. But
there is a but.
If he is sinning, verse 20 says, rebuke him publicly so that the others may take warning.
Balance again. Don't believe every rumor, but don't cover up real proven sin.
Exactly. And finally, cultivation. Elders aren't robots. They need rest. They need prayer. They need encouragement. You want a philagathos, a lover of good? You need to encourage him when you see good in him. Don't just treat him like the church's complaint department.
That is a good word for all of us in the pews. We often consume their ministry without ever thinking about ministering to them.
It's a symbiotic, not a parasitic relationship.
So let's wrap this all up. We've looked at Titus 1.8. We've seen the context of Crete, the land of liars. We've seen the mission-bringing order through character. And we've seen the architecture, the philagathon, renovated affections, the dikaion, upright walk, and the hosios, pious spirit.
It's a complete interlocking picture of a man.
And we've seen that this is all about Christ. This high standard isn't for the elder's personal reputation, it's for Christ's honor.
That is the ultimate why. Why does any of this matter so much? Because the church is the bride of Christ.
Yeah.
And the world is watching us. If the church is led by men who are liars, greedy, and unholy, the world will rightly conclude that the Christ we serve must also be a liar, greedy, and unholy.
But if the church is led by men who love the good,
Who are just in their dealings and who are reverent before God, the world sees a small, imperfect, but real reflection of the King we serve.
here's the final thought I want to leave you with today. And it is a provocative one from our sources. We live in a world, and let's be totally honest, a church culture that prizes talent. We prize the platform. We prize the results.
The charisma, the big personality.
The charisma. The question is this. Is your local church brave enough to prioritize hidden holiness over visible charisma?
That is the question.
The survival of the church in a Cretan culture like ours might just depend on that specific distinction. Are we building on a foundation of performance or on the moral architecture of the steward?
Let's choose the architecture.
Amen to that. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Reformed thinking. We will see you next time.